Hi, my name is Daniel Halmi, and in today's special of our show Hot Trades of the Day, I want to present to you with a new category in the commodity supercycle that nobody's talking about yet, but that every commodity investor needs to know about: the war metals. If you want to have a front row seat in this commodity supercycle and have the opportunity to make the biggest profits, the war metals is a commodity sector you have to know about, unfortunately. So in today's special, I'm going to give you all the facts behind this new commodity category. We're going to talk about the investment thesis. We're going to talk about how to play the war metals category. And in the end, I'm going to give you 3 war metals stocks to know about. So let's jump right into the presentation while I move the picture of this ugly guy. So every commodity supercycle has its own new hot sector. In the last commodity supercycles 20 years ago, I very vividly remembered it was uranium. Nobody had talked about uranium before, and then it became the hot new thing. In the brief commodity rally that we saw 2020 to partially 2022, depends on the commodity, it was lithium. So in this commodity supercycle that we are in right now, it will be the war metals. Now let me start with this, because this is very important. And the fact is that a lot of you will say, well, I have never heard about the war metals, nobody talks about them. What is this? The reason nobody's talking about the war metals is A, it's a category that media does not really like to talk about, which is war. B, the majority of the war metal stocks are very small. They're small caps, there are few mid caps, but really small caps, micro caps. So there are no ETFs. There are no funds. The banks can't really make money of it. And if they can't make money of it, then why should they talk about it? It's not in their own interest. Once these stocks reach critical size, oh yeah, the ETFs will come, and all of a sudden, it will be everywhere in the media. I've seen this before. It will happen again. Happened with uranium. Nobody was talking about uranium. Then uranium jumped over $100 a pound in the last super cycle. The uranium stocks ripped. They were big enough. All of a sudden, the uranium ETFs came out. They even tried to do uranium futures back then, and everybody was talking about it. Lithium, the same thing. So that's the reason why nobody's talking about it yet. But that is also the opportunity for you, because that gives us as retail investors real edge over the market and over the institutions. The matter of fact is, we have a new geopolitical world with active hot wars and the highest war risk in the past 40 years. After the war in Iran started, if you want to tell me we're already in a new world war, it's debatable, but I can't really fight you on it. It's an interpretation that is acceptable. Truth of the matter is, the period of globalization, of global peace, global stability, the world coming together that we saw in the early 2000s, in the past 2 decades, it's over. That's history. That's not coming back. And therefore, governments need to expand their military and increase their military spending quickly. For that, war metals, the commodities that are used to make the weapons, are a matter of national security. The US has already added numerous war metals to the critical and strategic metal list, which shows you how important these metals are. Lots of them, again, are small niche metals that are not talked about in everyday commodity coverage, in the coverage of the markets, where they barely talk about smaller, well, now they're called critical or strategical metals, but how often do you hear about tin or zinc, right? They barely talk about copper. So even more niche commodities that we're going to get into today, in today's show, are not covered in the mainstream media. But the war metals, they're necessary for the survival of states. So the government spending, and this is important, is recession proof. You're looking for a commodity sector that will not be affected by the possibility of economic downturns, a financial crisis, a recession. The war metals is it. And here's the most recent list for the critical metals that the US put out. And you see on them a lot of well-known names, but a lot of names of niche commodities that you probably have heard of if you're interested in commodities, but don't really follow. And you might think, why are they on the list? Well, today's show will solve this, or will answer this question. So the war metals boom, as you have seen, is clearly structural, and that gives it an immense advantage over other cyclical sectors like the industrial metals, now called critical or strategic metals because they are important for the economies as well. But the war metals, while smaller, are also different from other small commodities and small commodity trends that we've seen in past supercycles. They're not hype driven like a lot of these other niche commodities. Their demand is structural. Their demand comes from the governments. And what are war metals? What are they essential for? As you can see here on the list, I'm going to run down real quick. You need it for armor, for ammunition, for explosive, for jet parts, obviously for advanced weapon system, missile systems, drones, radar, secure communication, batteries. The war metals are in everything. In today's modern electronic warfare, they are irreplaceable. So what metals are officially classified as war metals? Obviously, in addition to well-known strategic metals like aluminum, for example, that you need for the military industrial complex to build their weapons as well. That's obvious. But for aluminum, that's only a part of what this strategic metal is used for. We are more interested in the pure plays. And on this list are tungsten, antimony being the most pure of all the war metals, gallium and germanium, titanium, graphite and lithium for the batteries, cobalt, chromium, magnesium, manganese for magnets, beryllium, bismuth, silicon carbide. Now, as you can see, there's an overlap between the war metals and the rare earth. Makes sense. Just in terms of what they are used for. But that also only means, we get double demand here, which is great for us as investors. And now let's take a look again at this most recent list for the critical metals that was published by the White House. And as you can see, a lot of these war metals are on this list for good reason, as you know now. These different war metals have specific roles for different parts of the military equipment, right? Titanium and aluminum, for example, that's for armor and aircraft and missiles, and gallium and germanium are for sensors and radars, and as I said before, graphite, lithium for the batteries, for drones and vehicles, tungsten, cobalt, beryllium is for engines and for armor-piercing technology, silicon carbide is for the stealth materials, and then the rare earth, obviously, for the magnets, for radar and guidance systems. So these are of crucial importance for the military, for military equipment, for warfare in the 21st century. And that brings us to the investment thesis for the war metals. There is a massive supply risk for the US and for Western countries in the new Cold War for the war metals, just as it is for rare earth. China, Russia, and a lot of the unstable African countries dominate the war metals supplies. And that is where our investment chance is going to be. The US and the West need to build out their own productions as fast as possible. And I stress as fast as possible. Take a look at this map. This is from 2019, and this is mostly for metals concerning batteries. It doesn't matter so much that it's from 2019 because not much has changed. What I want you to look at is, and as you can see, it includes lithium, cobalt, nickel, graphite. And as you can see, cobalt, a lot of it in Africa. Graphite, a lot of it in China. Lithium, that's fine. You have that in a lot of places in the world. But look at where there are no spikes. In Europe, in East Asia, Japan, South Korea, and especially in North America. There's no cobalt there. No nickel, no graphite. This is the situation that we have in the war metal sector. And that is absolutely unacceptable for Western governments. China dominates the production in tungsten, gallium, graphite, germanium, magnesium, and antimony. Russia rules large parts of the titanium market and the PMG metals. And then countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, that's a lot of things, but not democratic. It controls most of the global cobalt supply. That means made in the US as the theme is the most important thing for the US of A as the world #1 high-tech military. Secure war metals either in the US or through projects in other Western allied countries, Canada, maybe some Latin American countries. But really, the production in the US, that is the most interesting part. Because the US and the West, they need to build out their own war metals production, and they need to do it fast. And that means we're going to have major government support for companies in this sector. Investment money needed? No problem. Permitting process going to get sped up like you've never seen before. It's going to go as fast as we have never seen in the commodity sector. So that's great for us because the West cannot rely on the old supply chains for the war metals that worked well in the old world that is over. We have a new world order now. And look at this chart for titanium. I mean, this is wild. And this is a chart that shows you perfectly what the problem is and what the investment opportunity is for the war metals. You can see titanium market, the supply chain, how concentrated it is in Russia, in China, a little bit of Africa. But you can see where there's none, Europe, Australia, North America. So we just look at this map, we see the white spots, and we know this is where we need to be for investments. So that brings us to the investment opportunities and the way to invest. And this is a unique investment market because it is mostly niche commodities. So there's no future markets for the war metals that you can trade on the exchanges like the major commodities like copper, like gold, like platinum. The only way to invest in the sector is through war metals mining stocks. There are no ETFs yet. And again, as I said, yet they will come, but by the time they'll come, we here at Hot Trades of the Day have already made a lot of money in the war metal stocks. And by the way, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss videos when I keep talking about the war metals. We have been on this trend for a while here on this channel. So as I said, almost all pure play war metals companies are small cap or micro cap stocks. So the institutional investors can't even get into the sector yet. And that's why we don't hear any coverage of it yet. But the more the stocks will go up and the market caps increase, that will then open up the opportunities for the banks to move in, and they will move in, but not yet. And that gives us, again, the first mover advantage. There are not many sectors left in the commodity market where you can be a first mover. The war metals is one of these sectors where the majority of the institutional investors can't invest yet, but we can. And since these are niche commodities, there are not that many companies out there for the individual niche commodities, which means the capital gets concentrated in a small number of small cap stocks. And we all know what that means in the market. When everybody wants to run through the same door, that usually means price jumps. And I'll show it to you in the 3 stocks I'm going to talk about in a minute, what that looks like. Again, no future markets. The focus is exclusively on the war metal stocks. We want to focus on projects in the US first, Canada, Australia second. Europe is great. They just don't have very many. So that's why that would be the 3rd category. And then selected Latin American projects, that's fine too. But I really want to be where where this sector is gonna be the hottest, and that's gonna be the US and Canada. That is where my money wants to be, because especially the US, they're gonna support war metal project with everything they got. Again, focus on the metals, like I showed you before, titanium, for example, with limited supplies in the West, because that means the situation there is the most dire. So companies that are working in the sector of these niche commodities will get the most support. So, in summary, before we jump into the 3 stocks, war metals are of the highest national security importance. I cannot stress this enough. This is different than securing some commodity for the new iPhone. If we don't get a new iPhone with 8 cameras, no big deal. In this new world of hot wars around the world, governments have to increase their spending on their military. And the war metals are crucial for that. So this new sector just emerged because of the new geopolitical development. That's why it didn't really exist 20 years ago in the last supercycle, because that was a time when globalization was moving forward, when a lot of the countries were opening themselves up to new economic and political systems, and there was peace on everybody's mind because everybody was profiting from the global trade. The war metals are essential for modern military technology. For modern tech too, that's the beauty of it. With a lot of the war metals, again, we're going to get double support, right? They're needed in the tech sector, which the US as a number 1 tech sector needs to secure these metals. They're also needed and essential for the military and defense. Perfect for us as shareholders. War metals are really strategic assets for states. They're not a luxury anymore. They're not a nice to have type of commodity. They are necessary, especially with Russia, China, and Africa dominating large parts of the war metals supply. The West needs to build their own war metals production, and that is our investment chance. The war metals market, it's different, I talked about it, than the classic big commodities that you're familiar with. There's no future markets. It's all stocks. That's the only way to invest. And it's individual stocks because there are no ETFs there. There are no funds yet. But you need to understand, those are small caps, those are micro cap stocks. They have a high volatility. You really need to know what you get yourself into. But the war metal sector, that's a long-term structural theme. That's not a hype that we usually see with the niche commodities. This one is different. And with this, let's look at 3 war metal stocks. And let me flip over to the charts. Here you see the chart of a company called Hyperion X. It's like a smaller mid-cap, so one of the bigger war metal stocks. And it's developing the first titanium project and processing facilities in the US. And you can see the wild swings that this stock has. But you can also see, man, if it rallies, it really rallies. And it really, really can go up. So these are perfect swing trading stocks that give you great trading opportunities. If you're on it, look at this. Every time we broke the downtrends, we had monster moves up. Maybe we're in one of these monster moves right now. If you watch this video in March of 2026, this is one of the stocks that is basically titanium, obviously used in the industries, but again, crucial for the military industrial complex. Another one, we talked about it on the channel, American tungsten. Look at the wild possibilities that these war metals have when they get hot, just running. I mean, fantastic. And if you watch this channel for a while, you're familiar with this stock. We recommended it in, I want to say, January. So you got in somewhere around here if you saw this video and thought, oh, well, this is interesting. I'm going to research this and decide on my own if I want to do this, because I'm not your financial advisor. You're sitting on great profits, and this stock looks great again as of this moment. Looks like it wants to break out of an ascending triangle formation. And we have seen before how crazy American tungsten, which is a microcap stock. So this is not for everybody, as you can see. If it catches fire, it really catches fire. Now, talking about catching fire, the ultimate catching fire, US antimony, boy, what a crazy wild stock. Now, I first learned about this stock here in October, November of 2024. When I was in New York, I saw the presentation. I think it was me and maybe 10 people in the room. Nobody cared. And that's the beauty of the war metals. It's just not in the focus and on the radar of the majority of the investors yet. But even with the investors that are on it, you can already see what type of price action is possible. I saw the presentation. I said right afterwards, all right, I got to talk to management. So I talked to management, and the stock price was around like 65 cents. And it just shot up to $20 afterwards. Now, was that too much? Yes, but it shows you what's possible in the war metal stocks, the wild volatility and the possibilities that we have. And overall, this is a really, really constructive chart. Again, small cap stock, not for everybody, but we can see already what the price appreciation is when these stocks get hot, and that happens, as you can see, numerous times, regularly almost, you can say. And this is even before this sector really catches fire, because overall, these stocks, even though with all the volatility, which makes them great for swing trades, they keep moving up from the bottom left to the top right, which makes sense with the fundamental factors behind it. And that means more and more, they're getting closer and closer to reaching this critical mass when institutions can start to invest. And that's when things get really interesting, obviously. But we here at Hot Trades of Today will try to make a lot of money before that happens, and then when it happens, and after it happens. So hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any videos. That's today's video. I wish you a good day, and we see us soon for the next regular episode of Hot Trades of Today. Bye-bye.